beautiful sound.
Neato burrito.
Neato burrito.
Bunch of sadness and Matt Stafford and
And in 3, 2. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Team Morale Podcast, where we do our two favorite things. We drink alcohol and we talk the NBA. Joining me, as always, is the tall guy, Mitch.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
And we got another guy joining the pod today, a friend of the pod. His name is Thomas Hunter, and he will be taking us through, along with Mitch, our first mock draft on the pod today. Tom, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Tom. I am from the suburbs of Detroit, Michigan, and I went to TCU with Ethan and Mitch. I studied supply chain management, but basketball's always been a big hobby of mine since I've been a very young kid. I'm excited to be here today, so thanks for having me.
Let's get into the realness. Who are your teams? Tell them who you like.
Oh, wow. I hate all of my teams.
Give them the sob story.
I'm a sad Detroit sports fan. All of my teams are just truly terrible. There's no Luka or no Dame in my life. It's just a bunch of sadness and Matt Stafford. And
Hey, you got Sekou Doumbouya.
Dude, yeah,
right? It's Sekou Doumbouya.
Sadness and Matt Stafford might make the opening of the
in
podcast.
2024, Sekou's going to be sick, but it's a long time from now.
So another thing we got with us today is Firemans 4 Blonde beer.
Yes.
It's the first beer on the podcast, and
Yes.
Mitch picked it out today, so talk us through it.
All right, Fireman's 4 Real Ale. So it's made by the Real Ale Brewery here in Texas. And it's one of my favorites, one of my favorite kind of local ones. This is the Golden Blonde one. It's the best seller of that particular brewery. And it actually has come second in the Great American Beer Festival for the Golden or Blonde Ale twice now. So it's pretty good. I really like it, especially on like a nice hot summer's day. It's light enough to, not kind of like make you cringe like some of those IPAs, but still it's got some flavor to it.
It's pretty good. I get a lot of I don't want to say heaviness, but it's darker than I thought. When I originally opened it and saw it, I was like, it's gonna taste like every other light beer, but it's not. It's darker for a blonde.
Yeah, it's slightly better than the Coors Light that you're used to.
I'm more of a Keystone guy.
Keystone
I don't know what
guy?
you're talking about. All right, but we got a lot to get to today. We have our very first mock draft, like I said earlier. We're gonna make this a 2-part series, so we're gonna go through the lottery in this podcast, and then we will break off and do the latter half of the first round in another podcast later down the line. But we're going to be doing kind of an interesting thing here. We haven't seen it a lot, but we're kind of excited to give it a try. Mitch and Tom have both done a decent amount of research, and they're going to be alternating picks. So they don't know who's going to get the first pick right now, and then they're going to be making picks based on what the team that is. So whoever I say gets the first pick will put on the Minnesota Timberwolves GM hat, and will be drafting for the Minnesota Timberwolves. So are you both ready for that?
I am ready.
Oh, yeah.
Do you guys feel like you guys are going to make the right picks for your teams? Because both of you are going to be wearing 15 or so different hats today.
I'm about to destroy Tom in this.
All right, well, this will be fun, and both of you have done a decent amount of research, so we'll definitely be able to get into where the fits are and everything like that. So on the clock, Minnesota Timberwolves. We're going to give it to Tom. The guest gets the first overall pick. The Minnesota Timberwolves finished 14th in the West with a 19-45 record. They're going to have roughly, if the cap stays the same, around $10 million in cap space. We'll see, maybe around there. Their free agents are Evan Turner, Juan Gomez, and Malik Beasley. And James Johnson has a $16 million player option, which could kind of hurt their cap space. Tom, you are on the clock.
All right, so for the first overall pick, I went with Anthony Edwards. There's no real clear pick for who the T-Wolves should take here. I think in a perfect world, they would try and get some kind of point guard so they could have D-Russ off the ball. But that just isn't really the case here, and I think they will obviously try to trade this pick for the next, 9 days we have until the draft. But, we'll see how that goes. I think Edwards right now is probably the best bet. He's gotten a lot of hype the past couple weeks from the media. He's with Clutch now, so LeBron and Davis haven't given him some love. I think that it could be a fun fit with Russell and Towns. We'll see how it actually plays out. It will be interesting to see how Ryan Saunders tries to manage all that. So we'll just see how it goes. I think that'll be a fun fit. His comps have been kind of all over the place. I've seen some some like Oladipo comps, some D Wade comps, which is interesting too. So I don't know. We'll just sort of have to see what happens there.
Yeah, so literally just in today, I've gotten updates. One was that the Minnesota Timberwolves were going to take James Wiseman, and the next one was the Minnesota Timberwolves were going to take LaMelo Ball.
So I'm doing great. I'm doing a great start for me.
I'm off to a hot
But
start.
I
real
actually
hot start.
I agree with you. I think because that's kind of been the conventional wisdom so far is that they're going to go with Edwards. Edwards is one of the few guys in this class that has like the actual like potential to be a number one scoring option on a real good team if he actually develops into that potential.
He's got good defensive like projections as well. He
Yeah,
could be a
he's
good
an athlete.
defender.
Yeah.
He's a straight athlete. I mean, he's so fast, so strong. He's been kind of assumed that he was going to be the number one pick throughout like this entire process, and now I think they're doing a lot of smoke and mirrors because maybe they do want to trade it. I think they end up making a pick, and I think they end up picking Edwards.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
You mentioned that they need a point guard, and LaMelo is obviously the first pick. He's available,
Yeah,
but you don't think
I
LaMelo's
just-
the guy.
I don't think that's just a good fit. I think that's a lot of personalities. You have Russ and Towns already. You just want to bring in LaMelo, who's had so much hype through his youth career because of his dad and everything too. It is sort of tough. I just feel like that's a lot for that locker room to handle. I just think it's a good mix.
I mean, I think that I think LaMelo like wouldn't fit just because D'Lo is the point guard. He's kind of
That's
a
fair,
combo
too.
guard, but I think he's just like is gonna be the point guard
Probably
for them.
too.
So that's pick one. We're pick one's done. Mitch, you're on the clock. You are putting on your Golden State Warriors hat. You've won some championships recently. You've got this great asset in pick two, but they did finish 15 into the West with a abysmal 15-50 record. But you do have Steph, Clay, Draymond, Wiggins, Marquise Chris might round out that starting five. We're not really sure. Not a lot of big free agents, but you do have a couple of trade assets. What do you go with here?
So I think that it's more likely than not that Golden State probably tries to trade this pick at some point. That being said, if they are going to make this pick, they're going to pick James Wiseman. Yeah. There's a lot of other guys that they're kind of like been talking about. I know that like Obi Toppin's been talked about, Okongu's been talked about. But James Wiseman, to me, seems like the pick because at the very minimum, he's a good rim runner, which the Golden State Warriors love rim runners. My personal comps for James Wiseman is his absolute ceiling is going to be somewhere like Bosch, or his absolute ceiling is like Anthony Davis. Because I don't know if you watch some of his tape, like he moves so well for a guy who's 7'1". He has a good like turnaround jumper, kind of like Davis did in college. But his floor comp is Willie Cauley-Stein.
His floor. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a tough
I've
one.
seen some weird comps from I've seen it from Whiteside to Rasheed Wallace. I'm like, where is this going? There's just no no clear path for this guy. Like we saw 3 games of him in college, and like his high school opponents didn't seem like up to the task. Like I'm not really sure like what he's seen before too. So I saw I'm very curious to see what his next step is, whether it's in Golden State or somewhere else.
Yeah.
This top three is very interesting to where the top three are definitely, Wiseman, Edwards, and LaMelo Ball, and none of them seem all that great, and none of them seem all that bad. It's that they both have high ceilings, low floors. They're both risk picks, or they're all 3 risk picks. It's just it's an interesting top three.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a crapshoot. But yeah, I really like James Wiseman. He's got a really like high motor, which is good for a guy with his kind of athleticism and like his like, and that's why I don't think he comps well with Hassan Whiteside. I think that I think he's way different than Hassan Whiteside. I've seen that a couple times.
All right, so Mitch, so if they do, let's say, pick up Wiseman, what do you think the Warriors' ceiling is? What do you think their floor? I mean, obviously they're in title contention, but is he a guy that can put them over the edge?
I don't know if he puts them over the edge, but I think at the very least, this is a guy that you can pick up and can rim run for you this season and be, at the very minimum, a good backup center and a good project for what your team looks like post-Steph, post-Clay, and like moving forward as a franchise, because their window is coming to a close here in the next 2, 3, 4 years. And then it's like, what do you do after that? I think now that you have a really high pick, if you want to get a guy like Wiseman, he will A, fit with your team now, and B, fit with your team going forward as a potential star.
So that's the Warriors. Moving on. Warriors have made their pick. Charlotte's on the clock. They finished 9th in the East, which is pretty
Not bad
decent.
for them.
Yeah, I was going to say.
They had a low bar last year.
For Charlotte, that's not bad with a 23-42 record, which is pretty terrible, but the East is also terrible. They have, I mean, their starting five it's got some talent there with Devontae Graham.
It wasn't as gross as I thought it was going into on this draft.
Absolutely. I mean, Devontae Graham showed some signs. Could have been most improved player of the year.
Yeah.
Terry Rozier, good defensive guard, overpaid, but a good defensive guard. Miles Bridges and PJ Washington, both young,
Solid.
athletic starters that could be, something. And then Cody Zeller was just a hangover at center, but they needed to start somebody. But this pick could go a lot of ways. Edwards is off the board. Wiseman is off the board. Where are you going?
So you sort of alluded to it. This is a pretty solid starting five. I'm going to botch this. Onyeka Okongwu from USC at center. When I was watching tape last weekend, this was the guy that stood out to me the most. I was loving his game. I was just he was bouncing around everywhere. He was blocking shots. He was getting boards. He was just jumping out of the gym. And I was loving every second of it. I think he could be, I just saw Bam. I saw Bam the whole way. He was looking great. He was blocking shots. Similar build, 6'9", 240 kind of vibe. It's pretty close to Bam. And I was shocked. I thought he was, I had seen a whole lot of tape on him before, but he was just doing great. I think he could fit pretty well with Charlotte. Probably start day one over Cody Zeller. I think he was just great. They just need to give him some more minutes and help those guys develop a little bit more. I think I honestly think he probably could be better than Wiseman this year too.
I totally agree.
Okay.
Bam was actually my pick for the Hornets too.
Really?
And
Awesome.
Bam was the comp that I had for him as well. So he's one of those guys that he's like a high energy guy. He's about 6'9" but long arms, and he handles the ball well, and he flies all over the court. You kind of saw it with Bam in the playoffs this year, that the Heat can run a bunch of different lineups and run that weird zone with him just flying around. And when you have a guy like Okongwu, he has similar type of characteristics.
That gives him a definite young core to build around, which is Devontae Graham, Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, both young. Terry Rozier is still before his prime. You add Okongwu into that mix, that's a good solid core that in the East could honestly push for a playoff spot next year and be a playoff staple going forward.
Yeah, I will say that I've heard a lot of stuff about how the Hornets may be in love with James Wiseman and that they may be trying to trade up, and that even the Timberwolves might draft Wiseman in anticipation for the Hornets to go and try to get him. So there may be a little bit of movement with them as well.
Yeah,
definitely a trade up option for sure. Well, moving on to the fourth pick, we got the Chicago Bulls, who finished 12th in the East, 22-43 record, which is very bad. They do have some good building blocks in Zach LaVine. Wendell Carter Jr.'s shown some signs. Lauri Markkanen, if he could stay healthy, could be something. Kobe White's been a decent point guard and has the potential to be good. They do have some good young pieces, but they definitely need to add some more of a lot of things in order to be good.
All right. So for the Bulls, after a lot of consideration and reviewing of all the players, all the interviews, I have decided to draft LaMelo Ball, and I don't feel good about it. Wow. Okay, so here's my comps for LaMelo Ball. His ceiling is somewhere between Penny Hardaway and Magic Johnson, and his floor is Michael Carter Williams.
Oh, holy!
That is where LaMelo Ball lives right now. So you may have an all-generational talent in LaMelo Ball. You also may have a guy that just doesn't even make a roster in 4 or 5 years.
Hey, MSW is living the dream on the Magic right now as their third-string point guard behind Augustine and Markelle Fultz. So there's still a place for him somewhere in the league. Just not.
There may be a place for him somewhere, but okay. So.
Oh my god.
Okay, so
wow, we really blew this up right now.
Okay, so he's bounced around all over the place as a kid. He went to Lithuania to play with his brother LiAngelo, and then he went to the NBL and played with the Illawarra Hawks. And he had a good season. I feel good about the fact that league is like a grown man's league. It's really tough guys in it, and so I think that he kind of stepped up his maturity a little bit. But even after that whole year of being in professional basketball, you're still hearing about all these issues with his interviews and his maturity and how people don't like him. Maybe it's smoke and mirrors because someone's trying to trade up and they really love him and want to go get him. But I think that a lot of teams are not totally sure on him. I mean, he has a great handle. He's 6'7". He's really smooth. He does play fairly smart as far as passing and his off-ball defense. But he's still kind of weak, and he's still kind of immature, and is that kind of guy you wanted to be the star of your team going forward? I don't know, but if I'm the Bulls, I take the high pick or I take the chance that LaMelo Ball could be really good and potentially fit next to LaVine pretty well.
This just in, folks. Less than 2 weeks after saying that LaMelo could fall all the way to 10, Mitch in his mock draft has LaMelo Ball.
Okay,
going
I had him.
Okay.
4.
Just for comparison, I had him at 8 to the Knicks. So that's just where we're at here from a
Okay.
comparison standpoint.
I will say that I wouldn't be surprised if he fell to 8 or if he fell out of the lottery. Teams
Out of
just
the
decide that they
wow.
just don't like it.
I called him a punk a
Yeah.
week ago.
I stand
A man
by
on
that.
the podcast was like, this boy is a punk, and
Wow.
I quote him.
I stand by that. I don't back away from that. That being said, if I am the Chicago Bulls GM, I pick LaMelo Ball.
All right.
I said I'm not happy about it before I picked him.
Absolute fireworks at pick 4. We're moving on to pick 5, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers, which has been a roller coaster of a ride.
No, it's just a down. It's not a roller coaster. It's just downward.
Well,
as
they
LeBron
lost
left.
LeBron, and then
Again.
they were down, and then they picked him back up, and then they were good, and then he left, and they went back down. 19-46 record, which is just not good. Not a lot of hope on that team. You've got Drummond and then Kevin Love, who are both old and overpaid. I guess Sexton and Garland might give you a little bit of
Sexton.
hope.
I'd like Sexton. We haven't seen Garland enough for me to make a good opinion on Garland yet.
Their fit together has me questioning a
Oh,
lot
absolutely.
of things.
Yeah, that's
but
fair.
I remember last year when they were comping Garland to Dame, and I was like,
No,
oh boy.
It was Kyrie too. Though. Oh, he has the handles for Kyrie, and we're like, well, let's wait and see on that one.
Good luck, man.
Yeah.
But anyways, Tom, you're on the clock.
So I was thrown for a loop, but we regrouped here. So I'll botch this too. Denny Avdia.
Avita. Denny Avita. I think
It's
the
Dija. I think it's
pronunciation.
Avdia.
It's Avdia.
Avdia.
Avdia?
Yeah,
I thought it was
Avdia.
Avita.
No.
Wow.
The media lied to you. It's definitely Avdia from Maccabi Tel Aviv, Israel. Not the sexiest player on this board by any means. I think he's just like just a solid build, 6'9", 215. Good playmaker, makes good choices. He's known for being a great defender, which isn't something that we always get from the European or like the overseas prospects. So that's something that it is surprising. The knock on his game is he can't shoot great, which is not awesome for a guy from like overseas. That's like usually sort of more of their like area for expertise. But he shot, I think it was 55% from the free throw line, which is not ideal. But I think he's a solid defender, playmaker,
below average.
good ball handler. I think he could sort of fit in with the Cavs behind Cedi Osman or take his spot eventually. I think he's just a good sort of project for them to work on the next couple of years. My comp, I don't know if you guys recall him. Do you remember Andres Nocioni from the Bulls?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think of when I saw his
Great
tape was
comp.
Andres Nocioni. I was like,
that
you know what?
That is a good comp.
Andres Nocioni. That's what I saw when I was watching this tape. Just like a solid smart defender, like right place, right time. He makes like the right passes. He can make the occasional three. That was my comp.
He's definitely a safe pick. I did read an article the other day on Mavericks on their like Bleacher Report thing that said, "Don't get fooled. Denny Avita is not Luka Doncic." And I was like, "You go, Bleacher
Yeah.
Report. You tell him that he's not Luka."
So, my comp for Danny Avdia, who I actually have the Cavs picking him too.
Okay.
But my comp for him, my floor comp is Mario Hezonja. And
I've heard that too.
I hate Mario Hezonja. I actually I think that he's a good guy. I think he's nice and everything, but I see a lot of the same stuff where it's like he's big, he's athletic, he's not a great shooter. He should be he's a good slasher in theory, and he makes smart plays in theory, but I've seen it firsthand this last year. It just did not translate on the NBA court. I hope that
So wasn't Hezonja supposed to be a good shooter though at college, or not out of college, but from Europe, or no?
Dude, he was the second best prospect coming out of Croatia ever, and he was supposed to be good. But I think he was the number 5. I think he was the number 5 pick in his draft.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was supposed to be a good shooter. He was supposed to kind of be a do-it-all kind of guy, just like Avdia's kind of a do-it-all kind of guy. So that's where I'm a little bit nervous about him. I think that he definitely, if he develops his shooting a little bit more and just kind of has a good IQ playing off ball and being a role player, then he'll be good. But
The difference is between him and any Avdia is, Tom said it, he makes good choices, and Mario Hezonja cannot make a good decision, and it sounds like Avdia can.
And also it's funny for the Cavs. Like this could also be the same exact player as Cedi Osman, who's already their starting small forward. So I don't really know. Like maybe they don't want to go that direction because they already have someone like that on the roster starting for them. So
it's a great point.
See sort of how that goes too.
Yeah, it's a great point. They could be like almost the exact same person.
Yeah.
I mean,
wings have a pretty similar build, and like just the same kind of game.
Can't have enough wings, but I mean, you can't have enough like wings that can do the same thing.
Yeah.
But let's switch gears here. We're going to move on to pick number 6, and that is where the Atlanta Hawks are picking. They finished 14 in the East with a 20-47 record. They will have a decent amount of cap space, so they should be a spender this offseason. I'm not sure where they're going to go. They have a actually like pretty decent starting 5 with Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, DeAndre Hunter, or Cam Reddish. Pick one of them. John Collins, and then Clint Capella, who is a midseason trade who didn't get to play much for them, or if at all, I'm not sure. But one thing that they could use is probably some defense in their on the perimeter. Some perimeter defense is something that could probably help them out. But I mean, where do they go with 6, Mitch?
So I went a little off the wall with a guy who has been flying up the draft boards in the last several months.
Tom knows where this is going.
I don't know if you know. I'm going with Patrick Williams.
I'll start off. I had him. I'm going to the Stones with the next pick here. So
the Detroit Pistons fan is very upset right now. If you were here, you could see him realize that where Mitch was going with this.
As soon as he said he's jumped off the boards, I was like, God damn it. To Patrick Williams. It was either him or Vassell, and I was like, it's definitely going to be Williams here. So I actually had a Okoro here, so that's interesting too.
Really? So I had 3 guys that I was thinking about for the Hawks. Okoro was one of them, Williams was the other, and then Killian Hayes was the third guy that I was thinking about.
I thought Toppin here too, maybe. I was thinking Toppin maybe here too. So
Toppin could fit.
Yeah.
I thought that Toppin was like a little redundant since they already have John Collins as
that's
their
fair
guy.
too. That's fair.
And I thought that Patrick Williams, I mean, he plays like that 3-4. He plays that 3-4, and he's a really big, athletic guy. He has good percentages from 3, and he's got a good free throw percentage as well, because I think he shoots 84% from the free throw line, which I always find to be a really good kind of barometer for a guy, even if he only shot, I think, 34% from 3.
Yeah.
If you have a good touch from the free throw line, then a lot of time that leads to a good shooter.
So I have in my notes, whack jump shot. So, I was watching his tape. He starts with the ball like at his waist, and it ends up over his head, and it just takes too long. Like he needs to change that, or it's not
he loads the catapult. He's
definitely load the catapult
He's
kind of guy.
load the catapult kind of guy, which means like you got to sit there and wait for him to load the catapult, and eventually he'll get it off if it's not blocked.
He's also fascinating too. Like he didn't start last year for Florida State because he was a freshman. He came off the bench. It was like he only averaged 9 points a game, something like that.
His numbers were not that impressive. He's definitely a guy that people are valuing because of what he could be, because he's got the build,
absolutely.
He's got the athleticism, he's got the smoothness, and it's like you watch him play, he's very smooth in everything he does, but it's just like his numbers aren't there, and I don't know if his like finesse and touch is really there. He's definitely he's a project player for sure.
Yeah, he's a project player, and I think that's, I mean, I guess the Hawks GM or the owner has just hit the GMs with they need to be making the playoffs this next year, so maybe they turn into a trade down candidate as well, trying to look for more vets, but I really like Patrick Williams on the fit with this team as a potential 3-4, even like a small ball 5, and I think that he's going to do pretty well there. Sorry, Pistons.
Right. And just one last note on the Hawks there. I have heard like some trade stuff where they're trying to do some kind of package with the 6th pick and Herder to try and get someone better. I don't know like what that gets them or what more they're waiting for salary cap stuff. That's something that's been sort of like through the grapevine I've heard in the past.
That would be interesting. I'm not sure what that could get them.
I think that's like the starting base for the deal. It's not like that just sort
they're
of.
They're gonna have to add more if they're really gonna add something. But they do have cap space, so they could go get one of these stars if someone crazy wants to hang up or trade up.
Who'd you have for a comp for him? Just for
so my ceiling comp for him was Danilo Gallinari with defense.
Okay.
Because he is a really good defender, and if Danilo has stayed healthy, he's actually quite athletic for a guy at 6'8". He moves really, really fluidly around the court. And then his floor comp is Dante Cunningham.
Yikes. Okay. Oof.
As a guy who's kind of athletic and can kind of shoot, but can't really do either all that well. And so he just doesn't he just sticks around the NBA for a while, but doesn't actually get starting minutes anywhere.
He's what you call a minutes eater. He's just
Yes.
there to eat up some minutes, get some guys some breathers, and then just get off the court. You're like, get in there, don't screw anything up, don't fuck anything up, and we'll just get you off the court as soon as everyone else is ready.
Exactly. I had to dig deep for some of these floor guys.
All right, but I'm fascinated where Tom goes with this pick. Your Detroit Pistons are on the clock at 7. You're already wearing it's a Detroit Tigers hat, but you're wearing a Detroit hat, so please take it away, sir.
All right, so the 4 names I've been hearing the most on the sad Pistons Twitter that I follow and and social media stuff have been LaMelo Ball, please no, Williams, which I'm down for, Halliburton, Hayes. So I think here would probably go to Halliburton, Hayes, which is I guess sort of a toss up because they aren't that different. I'd probably choose Hayes. Yeah. So we'll do Hayes here. Well, yeah. You know what? Say more. Yes, Hayes. It's Hayes here.
You sure?
Yes.
You still got a couple minutes left on the clock
he's
here.
6'5", 215, from France last year. But he's a guy that's sort of been all over everyone's board. They have him as high as the top 3 to 10 to 12. He's really varied. But he's known for his playmaking. Great in the pick and roll. I saw that sort of half of his team's offense came from him and the pick and roll. So he's good with that. That could be interesting to see with the Pistons with Blake and Wood next year. Hopefully Wood. Cross your fingers. Please don't leave us, Christian Wood. And solid defender. I think he could be a good fit. I think he's a guy. He's supposed to be just this good locker room guy. Just sort of low key, just like that blue collar Detroit kind of thing that we're looking for our prospects here. The comps that I've seen that I sort of liked was Manu Ginobili. I could be down for Manu Ginobili. And they call him, what was it? It was something like Baby Harden in France, which I'll take any part of that if that means he's scoring a lot of points and he's getting my team wins in the future. So
the Blazers, or not the Blazers, the Pistons do need some point scorers.
Points would be great.
You look at that roster, you're like, oh God.
If Luke Kennard's taking that many shots, we need someone else to do it.
Who scores on this team?
Their defense really isn't bad, but we just have no one to score points. Derrick Rose is also too, if he's on the Pistons, he can learn from Rose, which is good too.
That's assuming Rose is still there.
If he's still there,
if
yes. He's not gone on draft night, but yeah, I think with how the board is played out, I would take Hayes. There's also the rumors that we might trade up with the Warriors with some weird Blake Griffin-Wiggins trade, which I'm sort of torn about. And then there's one where we do it with the Celtics where we get their 3 firsts for our 1 first, which is also kind of weird. So we'll see what happens. I don't know.
I mean, if you do make that deal with the Celtics, you would get 14, 26, and 30, which would help round out the roster. But I mean,
there's no wow guy.
Yeah, you're not getting the guy you're going to get at 7.
Yeah.
But all right.
We just need a tank for Monty Bates in 2 years. That's what we're doing right now.
Wow, that is a sad island where you are like, all right, our guy is what, a junior in high school right now?
Maybe. He's from Detroit.
That's our guy.
Senior in
He's from Detroit though. So
you're putting a lot of eggs in some guy
the next Derrick Rose,
maybe
LeBron
getting
James,
some hair on his chin right now.
They'll rig the lottery for us, so we get Imani Bates in 2 years and make Detroit basketball relevant again. So
I'm about it. Also, I'm a big fan of Killian Hayes. Yeah. I also had him going to you guys here at 7. I don't know about you, but my mock draft has been perfect to what it's been so far.
Not quite that same. The little ball really just threw it for a
I was
loop.
about to say, just out of curiosity, how many picks have you guys that have had that you both have been the same?
Top 3 and
I
Abdia.
So you had the Cavs. You didn't have LaMelo to the Bulls and Patrick Williams to the Hawks.
No, because I had Okoro to the Hawks. We'll see it for later.
So Mitch is for later. So but I'm 6 for 6 right now. Or
so
7 for 7.
So Mitch is just being wild here because it's the even picks that Tom is getting wrong here. The even picks are the ones that are going nuts.
Yeah, but anyways, I really like Killian Hayes. So he's a lefty, so that's why people call him Little Harden.
Yeah.
I think that he plays a lot like D'Angelo Russell. 6'5".
I've heard that too. That's a common one too.
Yeah, he plays kind of the point guard, combo guard position.
He seems a little more in control than Russell does because Russell's still a tad erratic. He seems to be more just focused in the moment. He knows what he's doing. He's not one that will take as many erratic shots as Russell could.
Yeah, no, I agree. And he takes a lot of floaters. I was looking at some tape earlier today, and he loves that little left-handed floater, moving to his right side. So does LaMelo.
Yeah.
But he also did that Harden step back a couple times, and his form on his shooting form looks almost identical to Manu.
Which
It
is
looks
good.
so similar.
Yeah, because when, that's perfect, too, with the Hayes versus Halliburton debate, because Halliburton shot's kind of whack, too. So that'll be something that we'll talk about later on. But, yeah, that's also something that was the final factor between Hayes and Halliburton for me. So
Yeah. And Kevin O'Connor out of the Ringer, one of my favorite guys who comes up with the draft board, he has on his big board, Killian Hayes is his number one guy.
I saw that.
I was like, oh, wow, really?
It gives me hope for the future.
Yeah.
Definitely interesting. Let's shift gears here and move on to maybe the biggest meme in the NBA. The team that you look at their roster and you're just like, what is going on? The New York Knicks are on the clock, Mitch. I hope you turn their organization around.
I'm fascinated by this pick.
Because the fact that they were supposed to have, pick 4, I believe, and they fell all the way to 8.
I think it was second, right?
So
I think they were supposed to have 3 or 4, but regardless, they were supposed to have a top 4 pick and fell all the way to 8. Nothing can go right for these guys. They got absolutely just fleeced by my Mavericks, which is just awesome to see. Ugh. I love you, New York.
Yeah, the guys who lose a lot and everyone seems to hate them still. It's
Yeah,
hard to do.
it is hard to
That's
do.
a hard place to be.
It is.
Okay, so I have the Knicks taking Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton, point guard out of Iowa State, sophomore, 6'5", and he's just like a really solid basketball player. He's really a mature guy. You can see the way he plays the game. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And those are the kind of people the New York Knicks need to have on their team. They need people who are not going to mess up when they're on the court because they're constantly full of people guys that just are kind of knuckleheads. I think that they need to add a little bit of maturity, and I think that Halliburton is a good place to start. I've seen some comps like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which I do see. I think he's a little bit more point guard oriented than shooting guard oriented, and he can kind of actually run your offense. I have his comp as Sam Cassell, mature guy. He can knock down threes. He can distribute the ball. He plays hard on defense. Halliburton is my pick here.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty much what I have for the most part too. There wasn't a whole lot more for me to add there, honestly. Ethan, do you have any more thoughts on that one?
There's not much here. There's not much here. Halliburton's probably the best guy left on the board right now. They're probably going, best available.
They need it.
The Knicks need everything. The only people on their team that might be their building blocks would be R.J. Barrett and maybe Mitchell Robinson. Ntilikina didn't pan out. Dennis Smith Jr. didn't pan out. Kevin Knox didn't pan out. None of these weird power forwards that they signed a while ago panned out. It's just one of those things where you look at their roster and it's they have a couple of young guys with maybe upside, but in the grand scheme of things, they need skill and they need the best people available, and that's what we got here.
Yeah, and I was going to add in there at the end, he'd probably start day one over Alfred Payton and Fayette Gatine, so...
And Dennis Smith Jr.
And DSJ. Oh,
DSJ
God,
doesn't even play.
I forgot he's on the team.
You forget because he was the guy that they mainly wanted in the Kristaps trade.
Yeah, the Knicks got to fix some stuff. They got to fix some stuff.
Well, because they have the new GM and Leon Rose. Maybe he's the one, and then they have Thibodeau, right? That's their coach now?
Yeah. And I do like Leon Rose a lot. I think that he's going to make smart decisions. I don't think that he's
It's a low bar. He'll make not bad choices.
Yeah, that is the bar. The bar is make good choices.
The bar is
Mario
don't be
Zonia.
terrible. No, but there was rumors that the Mavs are going to trade up, and I read an article that maybe they'll trade up with the Knicks, and I looked at the comments and I was like, nope, they will never trade with us again. All right, but we are about halfway through our lottery mock draft here, and I'm done with my beer. I don't know about you guys, but I am finished with mine. I'm ready to crack another one. Will you pass them down here?
Absolutely.
And then Mitch, if you got any more
I'm on
stats,
my last sip here.
If you've got any more stats on these things,
Any more
I'd love to
Halliburton?
learn more.
All
Hold
right,
on.
so-
Let's get the.
Oh yeah, beautiful sounds. Beautiful sound. All right, so some little stuff. So you got your alcohol content is 5%, and I'm gonna start doing some some good pairings with these alcohols.
Oh, we're getting a real sommelier out of you, aren't
Yes,
we?
yeah. Whatever beer and whiskey sommelier is, that's what I'm doing. Anyway, so the Firemans 4, it says here on this review website that it goes well with shellfish, which I think is just
Beer and
a load of BS.
Where are the shellfish?
That sounds terrible. But
Let me get you some
actually,
clams while we have this beer.
but actually, I will say, so I am a big fan of Fireman's 4, and I have it a lot with spicy foods, with wings or chips and queso
Oh, I like
or
that. Okay.
Mexican
Ooh,
food, and
okay.
I love this because it like it is like a lighter beer. It is a golden ale, but it also, I mean, it has enough flavor to where it kind of pairs well with and kind of dampens a little bit of the spicy foods. So love spicy food with this guy. Where's the bottle opener?
It's right here.
Here we go.
But yeah, no, I can't say anything more than I like it. I'm a big blonde guy just because I don't, again, similar to my whiskey taste, I don't have the enough hair on my chest to to just drink actual alcohol, so I like to dampen it with blondes and, you know, other weird things.
Would you say you like blondes and goldens more than like an IPA?
Absolutely, 100%.
Really?
Yeah.
So another thing is like the IBU content.
Okay.
So it's 23, which is fairly low. The IBU content pretty much means like how hoppy a beer is.
I like the less hoppy, the better.
Yeah, so 23 is pretty low. It's actually like fairly high for a golden, but you're gonna be a lot higher if you're gonna be drinking IPAs and stuff like that.
Which would make sense because when I first tasted it, and I said it earlier in the pod, it tasted darker than what I thought when I was like, oh, you're giving me a blonde, and I tasted, I was like, oh, that's darker than what I thought, and I guess by me saying darker, I meant hoppier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Look at this.
Look at you. Learning alcohol stuff.
Tom, what do you think on it?
It's good. It actually reminded me of Revolvers. So.
Revolvers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my main thought when I was having my first sip of this bad boy.
I do get Revolver actually. Yes.
Yeah.
Ah. Look at that.
Well, they are competing breweries, so makes sense why they're
Similar
tasting.
tasting.
Yeah, both
okay.
at Texas.
All right. Well, we reopened another bottle. We're moving on and later into the second half of the lottery here. Washington Wizards, a very interesting team, picking at 9. They're getting John Wall back this year. And if they're getting any sort of what John Wall was before he left or before he got hurt, him and Bradley Beal would definitely have this team making some noise in the East and making the playoffs.
Absolutely. So there are two ways I could see this going. Either they go for a wing to try and sort of bolster their roster to make a playoff push. This team should make the playoffs if John Wall's anywhere close to healthy, and I would think they would probably knock out the Magic's the one team in the East that's probably going to go. I think the rest of the East holds, besides maybe the Pacers they could follow too, depending on what happens with Oladipo. Or the other option is that they need someone for Fat John Wall insurance, so they go get some kind of point guard like Kyra Lewis or Maxey. But I have them going with the wing route, and I have them going with Devin. It's Vassell, right? Devin Vassell?
Vassell.
I've heard Vassell.
Are we sure? I've heard Vassell too.
I've heard both. He goes by both as well.
Avdia, Avita, Vassell. I mean, we don't know how to say
We're not
anything.
linguists. We know basketball.
This is also the first one that I did not get right.
Really?
It's
Who'd you
not
have
like
here?
down my list. I had Okoro here.
Okay, so it's for the same sort of deal.
Yeah, same
I have
kinda
Vassell
guy.
here. I'm more on I'm staying with Vassell. It's Vassell. I'm staying with Vassell. Just a great defender. I mean, he's the classic Florida State guy where he's just an absolute grinder on defense. He has so much upside here for the pros. He shot 40% from 3, which is great. Just awesome defender. Just a lot of hustle, just a lot of energy. This is sort of the guy that could probably be a great 6th or 7th man off the bench for the Wizards as they try and go for the push. And he can honestly probably take Troy Brown's spot here eventually, and the starting 5 as well for the Wizards. So.
Yeah, because their starting 5 actually is another starting 5 where you look at it on paper is actually pretty decent. You got John Wall, Bradley Beal, obviously both could be all-stars. Troy Brown Jr., who's the guy you're talking about replacing, is another guy in their starting lineup. Rui Hachimura, which is a lottery pick.
We'll keep him in there, yeah.
And then Thomas Bryant's actually,
Thomas Bryant.
yes, he's a good center.
Yeah.
He's a good center. He's a good young center. So there's definitely the pieces here. And then you mix in Davis Bertans, who could be on his way back, who could honestly start and push.
And Mo Wagner's not bad either.
Yeah, so they definitely have some pieces there. They should be able to make the playoffs in the East. It's definitely going to be interesting. But, it's definitely – Okoro's a good fit for them. He's definitely a guy that can help push them over the edge. So, question, who's our biggest, is there someone that's falling in our draft right now based on what
I mean,
who's
Okoro,
falling?
Okoro's probably –
Or you guys had him taking Vassell.
So I had Toppin
Okoro-
kind of high too. I had Toppin in the top 5 or 2 who's dropped. But I mean, he has been really the pandemic has hurt him the most of anyone in college basketball.
Probably.
He has gotten so screwed because he was the most hyped college basketball player in America the entire spring. Then COVID hit, and then just he fell off the face of the earth because he has dropped mightily. His draft stock has dropped mightily. He's a good player. He just these workout warriors like Vassell and Patrick Williams have just stolen all of his thunder. So, I mean, his stock's probably taken the biggest hit, and I mean, who knows where he ends up, honestly, at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to correct myself, they had the Wizards taking Vassell. Okoro's another guy that I was trying to say, like,
He's
he might be falling.
He's
like,
still
he's another guy
right
who's
now.
falling.
So him and Toppin are probably like the
the
two guys
biggest
that we had
fallers
that
right now.
have fallen in our draft. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, but it was only like a month ago when a rumor came out that the T-Wolves might be considering Toppin for the number 1 pick overall. I was like, okay.
And now we have him out. Basically, the earliest he can go is 10.
Yeah.
Speaking of 10, Phoenix Suns on the clock here at 10. A team that probably, other than the Lakers, ended the year on like the biggest high note, going 8-0 in the bubble. I mean, again, another
Just a
team
raw
where
deal.
like
just a raw deal by the Suns.
another team where you look at their starting 5 and it's like it makes sense. It just sucks that they're in the West.
Yeah.
I mean, Devin Booker is an absolute god, and like it's just how much help can they get them?
Yeah, so for the number 10 pick with the Suns, I'm going to go. There's a lot of routes you can go because honestly, they are pretty set in their starting 5. And you could get wings, but they got a lot of wings. You could go bigs, but they have DeAndre Ayton. But I decided to go with a point guard, and I got Kyra Lewis Jr. Okay. Out of Alabama, he's a sophomore, and he's a speedster. He is so quick. I compare him a lot to De'Aaron Fox. He moves around the court. He's all over the court. He's got actually a pretty good 3-point shot, and he plays really well as the ball handler in a pick and roll. And so then you can start moving Booker off the ball a little bit more. And if you do happen to lose Booker, or if you want to trade Rubio, I think Kyra Lewis would fit really well in that system with them, like pushing the ball up as much as the Suns do.
Yeah, he's athletic. He's fast. He's a little bit reckless at times.
Yeah, absolutely.
I kind of think Colin Sexton a little bit because they both went to Alabama. Like a little Colin Sexton. He's definitely just he's interesting. He's different.
I thought of Ish Smith because of my former Pistons fandom, because he just sort of going all over the place. But I think he shoots better than he does too. So I don't know.
That's my floor. That's
Really?
my
Ish
floor
Smith?
comp for him, which
Yes.
is Smith. I think at the
Ish
very
Smith.
least, he's going to be able to be like a quick point guard that can be a journeyman and run around different places and be like a solid producer. But yeah, that was my floor comp.
Love that. All right.
He definitely, like, I don't know how well he can play defense, but if he can play even a lick of defense, him and Devin Booker next to each other could fit pretty well.
Yeah.
They need defense so bad. Sorry.
They do need defense. You look at Rubio, Booker, and Ayton. None of those guys kind of want to play defense. Oubre's there.
Rubio's a low-key good defender. Low-key
He gets
good
some
defender.
steals. He gets some steals every now and
outside
then.
of that, yeah.
He's
they
a
don't
good
have...
off-ball defender. On ball, he's going to get beat.
Yes.
All right, so moving on to a team that is like changing the guard a lot, which is the San Antonio Spurs. They are trying to get younger. They have some good young pieces in Murray and Derek White, but they also have some old guys in DeMar DeRozan, LaMarcus Aldridge, who are well past their prime, both on big bloated contracts. Jakob Poeltl, their starting center this year, is a restricted free agent, so we don't know how much they're going to have to pay him to keep him around. This is probably a pretty big pick because this is probably the first time they're in the lottery in a long time.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So this is not how I thought the board would go. I think this is a great spot for Isaac Okoro now that he's there and that he's fallen. I feel like if he's there at 11, these Spurs are licking their chops for Okoro. I think this is a guy that they would absolutely love to get into their system. He's a great defender, smart player. I think he won SEC Defensive Player of the Year last year, maybe. I think he was up there. I think he was a guy though that just an absolute grinder on defense. The one knock on him is his shot, but if you're going to the Spurs, then like that's the best place to go fix your shot. So I mean, the comp for him I saw was like Justice Winslow. But I feel like if they can fix his shot, then that's fine. Or Andre Iguodala was around there too. I mean, those are good, just solid players. I think that he could aspire to be. And I think the Spurs could definitely get him there.
I totally agree. So the Spurs, if they got him, would be trying to go like the defensive route.
Yes.
Because they got DeJounte Murray, they got Derek White, and yes, they need to start looking for wings. I think Okoro is a really good fit here if they want to start going like a lot of defense first. Thing that worries me is 28% 3-point shooting for him.
It's the Spurs thing though to like fix shooters.
It's a good point.
This is like they have the best shooting coach in the U.S. that I've heard. Like Pop's top assistant's like the guy to fix this problem.
Well,
this
that's
is the
fair,
Spurs
then.
thing. This is this.
He's definitely a Spurs guy.
This is a
where,
Spurs
like,
guy.
He's a good defender. He's a good all-around player. He's like an above-average passer. Like, yes, he doesn't get a lot of assists, but like he's a good ball movement guy. Good just all-around player. It's just if they can get that shot. I mean, it doesn't need to be 36 league average, but if you can get it into like the 34 range, like just there, I mean,
And also
you have
right
to
now
guard
too, like he's not going to start immediately because they have DeRozan, they have Rudy Gay. Like he's probably not going to get all the minutes immediately, but they could definitely improve him and just sort of like ease him into sort of the role as they are trying to keep this transition going a little bit
He
more.
could definitely be a G League guy too.
Yeah.
Throw him in the G League for a little while, let him develop.
God,
let
that'd
his
be so
shot figure
tough
it
for
out.
who's supposed to go like fifth in the draft. Now he's going to the Spurs G League team. That's that's tough.
But it makes sense to fix
I
that
know.
shot. I mean,
Yeah, fix the shot, and I have his ceiling being like Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler
Okay.
came in, not a very good shooter. I mean, a really hard worker,
Yeah.
great defender, and if he can fix that shot, he could be somewhere in that same kind of category.
Yeah.
So Okoro's off the board. The big faller in this mock draft right now is Toppin. Toppin could have gone number 1, and he is now outside the top 11, which is just shocking to me. Mitch, you're on the clock at Sacramento. I mean, they already have a couple of good big men, but like, is Toppin the guy there at 12?
I think Toppin's the guy there. I take Toppin at 12. I had Toppin going 11 to the Spurs in my mock draft. I think you could have gone either way with him or Okoro, and it would have been a good fit. But if I'm the Kings, I am ecstatic about getting Obi Toppin here in the 12th pick. If for no other reason, I think that he would fit really well in their system. I know that they have big men. I know they like to play Harrison Barnes at the 4, but you can kind of do an alternating 3-4 thing with him and Obi Toppin. I think Toppin is getting slept on a little bit right now. A lot of people are comparing him to like athletic rim runner type guys. Like I saw one that's compared him to Amari Stoudemire. I don't really see that. I see him more as like a mid-range shooter, bit of a shot creator, a guy that can like go get a bucket on his own if you really need to, while also being hyper athletic. I really like Toppin, and if I'm the Kings, I'm very happy they dropped this far.
I'd be ecstatic. I was the Kings at 12.
I see him almost like a Draymond Green-esque type of player.
I also saw
where,
Sean Marion, and I was like, ooh, Sean Marion could be it.
Yeah, someone that you can like create the offense inside out with, and not necessarily post him, but like definitely use him to like create the offense. He's a above average passer. His game is all around good. I mean, he can shoot, he can play defense. Like there's a lot of things he can do. It's just one of those things where like he doesn't have that one thing that sticks out as like I'm amazing. He's just good at everything.
Yeah, I think you're right on point, Tom, when you said that he was the guy that got hurt most by this pandemic, because I'd imagine that he would have been in March Madness, and he would have been one of like the stars that people were watching.
Yeah, because they would have been like a 2-3 seed. They would have killed it. Yeah,
and they would have done really well. I mean, they at least would have won a couple of games, and people would have credited Toppin for it. And he would have been one of those March Madness guys that launched up. And since now people are like, oh well, he's older, and like, oh maybe he's not like as good or as skilled as we thought he would be. But Toppin, big fan.
Yeah, I like Toppin a lot. I like this next team up a lot, which is the New Orleans Pelicans. They are a fun team to watch. They've got arguably the best young core in the NBA. Zion, I think, is for real. I'm going to piss some people off by saying this, but I love Lonzo, love his game.
You're still on Lonzo train?
I am all aboard the
bubble.
Lonzo
Maybe
train.
like sell all his stock. I'm so bad on Lonzo.
I still think like in his role, Lonzo could be good. I love Brandon Ingram. I think his game is really fun to watch. He's one of those guys that loves the mid range, which I'm like big dirt guy, big mid range guy. Tom, who you got with the New Orleans Pelicans taken?
So I think we should start off that this pick could also probably be traded. This is something that's been in the news more too, as they're sort of looking at offers for Drew Holiday, like along with that to like someone else to go along with the roster. I'd be sort of curious to see what they're trying to hope for. But if they do keep this pick, I'd probably go Jalen Smith from Maryland. Yeah, so I was big on this guy. I watched his tape, and I was I had watched him a few times, being sort of like the Big Ten guy that I am. I saw him play against Michigan State, and he just he's a fighter down low. He's got some like good ball handling skills. He's a good finisher around the rim. He's in mid range. He can make a three every now and then too, which is good for nowadays. And I think most importantly, it's like just good Zion insurance right now, because we have no idea what Zion's body's going to be doing, like what shape he'll be in. I mean, he had this sort of like weird offseason now where he got like 2 months off. So I think this just sort of gives them another body down low with Zion, Favors, and Jackson Hayes, just to sort of give them to sort of give them that like more of insurance, because the backup for Zion right now is Kenrich, who here we do all love. I'm not sure if Kenrich is meant for the starting 5 for the Pelicans if Zion's hurt and they're trying to be a top team in the West. So I feel like Jalen Smith might just give them this little more of insurance. in case Zion does get hurt or if he does have problems, just to sort of give him more time. So
It is sad to say Kenrich Williams is also a free agent this year.
Oh, no.
And we don't. I mean, if I'm gonna be as TCU fans, if you know, we love our boy Kenny Hustle, but I don't know if he's gonna be.
he might go to a better place. Actually, I don't even know if he'll go to a better place.
I don't
at this
know if
point.
he's gonna get a second contract in the NBA. Love the guy. He does well when he plays, but he does not. He's not one of those guys that can really help out a team that's gonna be good.
Yeah, we all love and miss Kenny Hustle over here, but it's probably going to be his last contract.
I mean, honestly, if the Pistons need to fill a roster, they can just try him out at least.
Bring him in.
I mean, yeah, like he's a hustler. You know, we just need some blue collar Detroit guys to get in there and try and do some stuff. I mean, he can burn minutes for a year for the Pistons, honestly, if we need him to.
Hey,
We could
love
talk Honey
myself
up.
a minute eater.
Yeah.
Love myself a minute
He will devour
eater.
any minutes the Stones will give him next year.
We could talk Kenny Hustle all night, but I'm going to go back. So I actually had Jalen Smith here too.
I'm honored.
We're like on the same
We're
wavelength
pretty
here,
close.
Tom.
Yeah, just one or two off.
Yeah, so Jalen Smith is a big, strong, athletic, and kind of sweet shooting big, which I think is exactly what the Pelicans need. Because Jackson Hayes is going to be okay next to Zion, but he's already such like an athletic, raw guy. Derek Favors is probably going to be on his way out, probably go find another home this offseason. I think they could use another big, and I think Jalen Smith kind of fits that bill really well for them.
I didn't realize how well he shot threes. I mean, he could just
Yeah.
He's great. Like he's a great pick and pop guy for Lonzo probably too. If that was sort of the way that they wanted to sort of infuse that.
Yeah, with Lonzo's ability to
offense
see the
too.
court,
Yeah.
like using Zion on the pick and roll and be able to have that lob threat and being able to have a stretch five next
They
to
can
him.
try to do 5 wide honestly with that too. Honestly,
Yeah,
It's a little
I
bit-
mean, it just being wide like that,
Yeah.
having so much room for Zion to be able to work in the paint.
let him
it's
cook.
good. Yeah,
there we go.
I mean, his averages are awesome. He had 15.5 points, 10.5 rebounds, 2.5 blocks, and 37% from three-point range.
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly the kind of modern NBA big that you are looking for, and I think he'd fit really well next to Zion.
that
Yeah.
2.5 blocks and 37 from three is Kristaps like numbers. Those are some numbers out there that like unicorns get, and I'm not calling him a unicorn just yet, but he's got. In college, he might have been a unicorn.
And his main comp has been Serge Ibaka. That's kind of perfect, honestly, for what he's been like for what he was at Maryland too.
Big
Yeah.
Serge Ibaka guy.
Yeah.
Last pod, I went on a rant about how much I love Serge Ibaka, and Serge
Oh.
Ibaka is, come to Dallas, please, Serge, please. All right, so let's go into our last pick of the lottery. This is kind of the most interesting pick because I honestly don't know if they make the pick. This is the best team we've talked about so far
By a mile.
by a mile. Maybe the Warriors next year will be kind of in this range, but the Boston Celtics have picked 14 via the Memphis Grizzlies. This is the first traded pick that we've gone over, but the Memphis Grizzlies gave up this pick at 14, and Boston has it, and they were third in the East, a 48-24 record, an insane starting five, but, I mean, they definitely need some help at center.
Yes. And so there's a lot of things that, like a lot of ways the Celtics could have gone here. Yeah. And so they have this pick, they have pick 26, and they have pick 30. And and I think that they can go with someone who is a bit of a raw project, but if turned around really well, could fit perfectly into that positionless small ball 5 spot, and that is Precious Achiuwa.
Yeah.
Is that what you had?
It's not, but I'm not surprised that you chose that. Yeah, that I was down to him and someone else. So this is that's totally fine.
So
I'm not surprised at all.
So there was a bunch of different guys that I felt like I could have gone with here. I think that they're like already stock full on wings. I think that they're all the best point guards at this point have already been taken,
Yes.
and there's some better point guards or some good point guards you can take there at the end of the first round where their other picks are. So right now I'm going with Achiuwa. He is hyper athletic, and I think at the very minimum you're getting a guy like Jordan Bell, who is smaller, 6'9", I think is what Achiuwa is, but he is a great shot blocker. He flies all over the court. Like I said, he's hyper athletic. He's going to be a great pick and roll guy, and he's a really good like switch defender on wings and stuff. Kind of like what Daniel Tice is, but just a more athletic, higher potential Daniel Tice.
I saw a comment from Montrezl Harrell, and I was like, I see it. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
We hate him, but that makes sense.
Another thing that you were here for at last pod was we went on a rant about how much everyone hates the Clippers.
It's
And
fair.
But yes, I do see it. He is definitely raw. He is definitely athletic. He's definitely a guy that could help at the 5. I don't know if he's like ready to help out day one. He might need a little work, but he's definitely a guy that like the Celtics could use to be their center for the future.
Yeah, 7'2" wingspan.
That's a lot.
Like
Helps a lot.
That's lanky.
he's 6'9", but he's really long and he's thick. So I think he's the kind of guy they could use.
Yeah, so it'll be fascinating to see. I mean, I guess he'll have to fight with Robert Williams for minutes next year. I don't know how that's going to go. Yeah, so we'll see how they believe it in Robert Williams versus Precious if they were to take him there. So
Yeah, Ennis Canner also has a player option, so if he
that's
opts
right.
in for $5 million, which I don't know if he will or not.
he probably should.
This year he
Probably a good
probably
call.
should.
Probably should.
Excuse me, probably should.
Voice crack.
Voice crack.
He's drunk.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like he could fight for minutes. I could also see them stashing him in the G League or burying him at the end of their bench just to get some garbage minutes just to ease him in. But
They're also in a weird spot. I don't think they can keep all of their picks on their roster.
they can't.
So
They're gonna have to make a trade.
yeah, or they'll have to just get a bunch of foreign guys and just like stash them overseas somewhere.
But so yeah, that's the end of the lottery. You two did great. How do you guys both feel about how you drafted so far?
I am more relieved that our mocks were pretty similar for the most part, just like one small differences here and there. So
I'm sorry that I took Williams from your Stones.
I know the Stones could have used him, but I mean, like honestly too, it would have been weird to see like him and Sekou in the same backcourt that like might be too similar too. So it might be It's for the best, honestly. We're still just making room for a brighter future. You know, just Hazel, just a new part of our plan.
I feel pretty good about it overall.
Yeah.
That's great, guys. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Another episode of Team Morale Podcast, our first beer podcast.
Yes, first beer.
it is?
Fireman's
Oh, I
4.
missed
Yes, our
Fireman's
first beer.
4.
Fireman's 4. We'll be back next time with the rest of our mock draft. We just did the lottery this time. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you.
A
Glad to be here.
reoccurring member of the podcast for sure. Definitely a member of Team Morale. And yeah, have a good one, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.